3 weeks had passed since Hana first saw the cub. She returned to the Crystal River every single day. Sometimes she saw the golden creatures. Sometimes she did not. But each visit taught her something new. She had started calling them Lupari. The name came from an old Earth word for wolf-like animals. It seemed to fit. The Lupari moved in packs just like wolves. They hunted together and protected each other. But they were much more complex than any Earth animal she had ever studied. The cub appeared often. Hana had named him Taiyang because his golden fur reminded her of sunlight. Every time she saw him, he was practicing something new. One day he practiced stalking by sneaking up on flowers. Another day he practiced jumping by leaping at shadows. He was always learning, always trying to improve. What amazed Hana most was how the adult Lupari taught their young. She had watched them for hours through her camera drone. The adults would demonstrate a skill, then let the cubs try it. When the cubs made mistakes, the adults showed them again. It was deliberate teaching, not just instinct. She saw Taeyang's mother show him how to dig for root vegetables. The mother used her strong claws to scratch at the dirt until she uncovered a blue tuber. Then she stepped back and let Taeyang try. He dug in the wrong spot at first. His mother gently pushed him to the correct location. When he finally found a tuber, she made a pleased chirping sound. Hana recorded everything. Her data files grew larger each day. She watched the videos at night in her small room at the colony. Every time she saw something new, she wrote detailed notes. Minho helped her organize the information into proper scientific reports. "You are getting too attached," Minho warned her one evening. They were in the lab reviewing footage from that day. "You need to remember these are wild animals. They are not pets." Hana knew he was right. She tried to stay professional and distant. But it was hard. Every time she saw Taeyang, she felt a connection. The little cub was curious about her, just as she was curious about him. Sometimes he would sit at the edge of the forest and watch her work. He seemed fascinated by her strange human behaviors. She had learned to recognize different individuals in the pack. Taeyang's mother had a scar on her left ear. His father was larger than the other males and had darker fur on his back. There were 3 other cubs in the pack, all slightly older than Taeyang. They played together roughly, tumbling and wrestling in the purple grass. The pack's territory covered about 5 square kilometers. They had a den in a rocky hillside about 2 kilometers from the river. Hana had found it by following them one day. Though she stayed far back to avoid disturbing them, the den entrance was hidden by hanging vines and looked very secure. She also learned what they ate. The Lupari were omnivores. They hunted small animals that looked like rabbits with 6 legs. They caught fish from the river. They ate fruits and vegetables they found in the forest. Sometimes they worked together to bring down larger prey. Hana watched them hunt a creature similar to a deer. The adults surrounded it while the cubs watched from a safe distance. It was a teaching moment, showing the young ones how to cooperate. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. Hana was sitting by the river as usual, pretending to study water samples. Really, she was watching Taeyang play nearby. The cub had grown more comfortable with her presence. He no longer ran away when she appeared. Suddenly, dark clouds rolled across the pink sky. The weather on Kepler 442b changed quickly. Within minutes, rain began to fall. But this was not normal rain. The drops were thick and came down hard, almost like hail. Thunder boomed overhead, shaking the ground. Taeyang looked around nervously. He made a high-pitched whining sound. Hana realized he was calling for his pack. But no one answered. The storm was too loud. The river began to rise rapidly. The rain was so heavy that water poured down from the hills. The calm stream became a raging torrent. Taeyang backed away from the rising water, but he seemed confused about which direction to go. The storm had disoriented him. Hana watched the cub panic. Her scientific training told her not to interfere. Animals got lost sometimes. That was part of nature. But her heart told her something different. Taeyang was just a baby. He was scared and alone. She could not just stand by and watch. She made a decision that she knew Minho would criticize. She stood up and called to Taeyang. The cub looked at her with those huge eyes. She pointed toward higher ground, away from the flooding river. "Come on," she said softly, even though she knew he could not understand human language. To her surprise, Taeyang started moving in the direction she pointed. Maybe he understood her gesture, or maybe he simply trusted her. Either way, he followed as she led him to safety on a rocky outcrop above the water. They waited there together as the storm raged. Hana sat with her back against a large boulder. Taeyang huddled nearby, shivering in the cold rain. He was close enough that she could have reached out and touched him, but she kept her hands to herself. She did not want to scare him or break the fragile trust between them. The storm lasted for 2 hours. When it finally ended, the forest was dripping and muddy. The river had become twice its normal size. Branches and debris floated past in the brown water. Hana heard barking in the distance. Taeyang's ears perked up immediately. He stood and called back, making excited yipping sounds. Moments later, his mother appeared through the trees. She was soaked and looked frantic. The mother saw Taeyang and rushed to him. She sniffed him all over, checking for injuries. Then she looked at Hana. For a long moment, their eyes met. Hana held very still. She did not know what the mother would do. Would she see Hana as a threat? Or would she understand that Hana had helped her cub? The mother made a soft sound, almost like a purr. Then she touched her nose to Hana's hand. The gesture was brief, barely a second. But it felt significant. It felt like gratitude. Then the mother picked up Taeyang gently by the scruff of his neck and carried him into the forest. Taeyang looked back at Hana as they left. If a Lupari could smile, she thought he was smiling. Hana walked back to the colony slowly. She was soaked and exhausted. But she felt something she had not expected to feel. She felt like she had made a real connection with another species. Not just a scientific observation, but something deeper. When she told Minho what had happened, he shook his head with worry. "You should not have interfered," he said. "What if the mother had attacked you? What if you had accidentally hurt the cub?" "But I did not," Hana replied. "And now we know something important. The Lupari can recognize helpful behavior. They can understand intentions. That level of social cognition is rare. It suggests they might be more intelligent than we thought." Minho could not argue with that. He reviewed the footage from her camera drone, which had kept recording throughout the storm. The video showed everything. Taeyang's fear, Hana's guidance, the mother's grateful gesture. "This is remarkable," Minho admitted, "but you still need to be careful. Just because one Lupari trusted you does not mean they all will, and we still do not know everything about their behavior." Hana nodded. She understood the risks, but she also understood something else. The Lupari were not just animals to be studied. They were intelligent beings with emotions and social bonds. They deserved respect and protection. Over the next few days, something changed. Taeyang and his family began appearing more often near the river when Hana was there. They no longer seemed afraid of her. The cubs played while the adults watched. Sometimes they brought food and ate near her, though always keeping a safe distance. Hana felt honored by their trust. She continued her research, but now she felt like she was learning about friends rather than just studying specimens. She documented their daily routines, their games, their lessons. Each day brought new insights into their complex social structure. She had no way of knowing that everything was about to change, that humans were about to threaten the very existence of these remarkable creatures, and that she would have to choose between following rules and doing what was right. The morning air on Kepler 442b smelled different from Earth. Hana breathed it in slowly as she walked through the purple grass. Everything here was strange and beautiful. The trees had silver bark that shined in the sunlight. The sky was a soft pink color instead of blue. This alien world was now her home, at least for the next 2 years. Hana worked as a xenobiologist. Her job was to study the animals and plants on this new planet. Humans had built a small colony here just 6 months ago. Most people stayed close to the settlement, but Hana loved exploring the wilderness. She wanted to understand the creatures that lived here. Today she was heading to the Crystal River. It was her favorite place to collect samples. The water there was clear and cold, flowing over rocks that sparkled like diamonds. Many animals came to drink there, which made it perfect for her research. She carried her equipment bag over her shoulder. Inside were sample containers, a scanner, and her data pad. She also had a small camera drone that followed her everywhere. It recorded everything she saw. Back at the lab, Minho would watch the videos and help her write reports. The forest grew thicker as she walked. Giant ferns brushed against her legs. Strange birds with 4 wings flew between the trees. They made clicking sounds instead of singing. Hana smiled. Every day brought new discoveries. She reached the river after an hour of walking. The water rushed over the smooth stones, making peaceful sounds. Hana knelt beside the water and opened her bag. She filled several containers with water samples. The liquid glowed slightly in the dim forest light. She would test it later to see what tiny organisms lived in it. A movement caught her eye. Across the river, something small and brown was drinking water. Hana stayed very still. She did not want to scare it away. The creature looked like a mix between a fox and a bear. It had thick fur and a long tail. Its ears were large and pointed. Hana slowly reached for her camera. She took several pictures. This was exciting. She had never seen this type of animal before. It might be a new species. The creature finished drinking and walked back into the forest. She stood up and brushed the dirt from her knees. Time to collect some plant samples. She walked along the riverbank, looking for interesting specimens. A tall plant with red leaves caught her attention. She took out her cutting tool and carefully removed a small branch. That was when she heard it, a low growling sound behind her. Hana froze. Her heart started beating fast. Very slowly, she turned around. She expected to see a large predator ready to attack. Instead, she saw something that made her want to laugh and cry at the same time. A small creature stood about 10 meters away. It was the size of a large dog, covered in golden fur that shined like metal in the light. Its eyes were huge and round, taking up most of its face. Those eyes stared at Hana with an expression that was not quite threatening. The creature growled again. But the sound was all wrong. It was too high, too uncertain. The little animal's legs were shaking. Its tail was tucked between its back legs. This was not a dangerous predator. This was a baby trying to act brave. Hana felt her fear melt away. She had seen this behavior before on Earth. Young wolves and lions practiced hunting and fighting. They learned by pretending. This alien cub was doing the same thing. It was teaching itself to sound scary. The cub took a small step forward and growled louder. Then it looked around as if checking to see if anyone was watching. When it growled again, it sounded even worse. The poor thing had no idea what it was doing. Hana wanted to move closer, but she knew that was dangerous. Even baby animals could bite or scratch, and she did not know if this species was poisonous or carried diseases. She needed to be careful. She sat down slowly on the ground. She made herself smaller, less threatening. The cub watched her with those enormous eyes. It tilted its head to one side, confused by her behavior. For several minutes, they simply looked at each other. Hana could see the cub's chest rising and falling with quick breaths. It was nervous but curious. Finally, the little creature took another step toward her. Then another Hana's camera drone buzzed softly overhead. The cub looked up at it and growled. This time the growl was more confident. The cub seemed proud of itself. Hana could not help smiling. A louder, deeper growl came from the forest behind the cub. The little one jumped and spun around. A much larger version of the cub emerged from the trees. This was clearly the parent. It had the same golden fur, but it stood as tall as Hana. Its muscles rippled under its coat. This animal was definitely dangerous. The adult made a sharp barking sound. The cub ran to it immediately, pressing against its side. The parent sniffed the cub all over, checking for injuries. Then it looked at Hana. Hana did not move. She barely breathed. The adult could attack her in seconds if it wanted to. She was completely defenseless out here. Her only weapon was a small knife meant for cutting plants. But the adult did not attack. It simply watched her for a long moment. Then it nudged the cub with its nose and turned back toward the forest. The cub followed, but it kept looking back at Hana. It seemed disappointed that their encounter was over. When they disappeared into the trees, Hana finally let out the breath she had been holding. Her hands were shaking. She had just met a completely new species. More than that, she had witnessed complex social behavior. The parent had checked on its young. The cub had been practicing survival skills. This suggested intelligence and social learning. Hana pulled out her data pad and started typing notes as fast as she could. She described everything she had seen. The golden fur, the huge eyes, the practice growling, the way the parent had responded. This was important data. Her drone had recorded the whole thing. She could watch it again later and catch details she might have missed. Minho would be so excited when she showed him the footage. Hana stood up and looked at the forest where the creatures had gone. She had so many questions. Did they live in packs like wolves? What did they eat? How many cubs did they have at once? Were they the top predators on this planet? She needed to learn everything about them, but she also needed to be smart. These animals were wild and unpredictable. She could not just walk up to them. She would have to observe from a distance and slowly earn their trust. As she packed up her equipment, Hana made a decision. She would come back to this spot tomorrow, and the day after that, she would watch and learn. Maybe if she was patient enough, the cub would appear again. She started walking back to the colony. Her mind was racing with plans and ideas. This discovery could change everything. If these creatures were as intelligent as she suspected, they deserved protection. The colony would need to be careful not to disturb their habitat. The sun was setting by the time she reached the settlement. The buildings looked strange and out of place against the alien landscape. Hana walked quickly to the research lab. She could not wait to show Minho what she had found. He was sitting at his desk when she burst through the door. He looked up from his computer screen, startled by her sudden entrance. "You have to see this," Hana said breathlessly. She connected her camera drone to the main computer and pulled up the video. Together they watched the encounter with the cub. Minho's eyes grew wide. "That is incredible," he whispered. "Do you know what this means?" Hana nodded. "It means we are not alone here, and it means we need to be very careful. These creatures are more than just animals. They might be the beginning of something truly intelligent." The ships arrived without warning on a cold morning. Hana was at the river with Taiyang and his pack when she heard the roar of engines overhead. 3 large cargo vessels descended from the sky, their metal hulls reflecting the pink sunlight. They landed near the colony, sending up clouds of purple dust. The Lupari scattered immediately, frightened by the noise. Taiyang looked back at Hana once before following his family into the safety of the forest. She watched them go with a worried feeling in her stomach. Something about those ships did not feel right. She hurried back to the colony. People were gathering near the landing pad, curious about the new arrivals. The ships were marked with the logo of Dihan Mining Corporation. Hana's worry grew stronger. Mining companies did not come to new colonies just to visit. A man in an expensive suit emerged from the lead ship. He was tall and walked with confidence that bordered on arrogance. His name was Hyuk, and he wasted no time explaining why he was there. He gathered everyone in the colony's main hall for an announcement. "Good news, everyone," Hyuk said with a broad smile. "We have found valuable mineral deposits under this region, rare earth elements that are worth billions. The company will begin mining operations immediately. This means jobs for all of you and wealth for the colony." Most people cheered. They had come to this planet hoping to build better lives. The promise of money was attractive. But Hana did not cheer. She raised her hand and stood up. "Where exactly are these deposits located?" she asked. Hyuk pulled up a holographic map. He pointed to an area that made Hana's heart sink. The deposits were directly beneath the forest where the Lupari lived. The mining would destroy their entire territory. "You cannot mine there," Hana said firmly. "That area is home to an intelligent species. The Lupari live there. We need to protect their habitat." Hyuk's smile faded. He looked at her with cold eyes. "Intelligent species? They are just animals. I have read your reports, Miss Hana. Nowhere do you claim they are sentient. They are not protected under any law. They show complex social learning," Hana argued. "They teach their young. They recognize helpful behavior. They might be on the path to developing true intelligence, might be as not good enough," Hyuk said dismissively. "We have legal permits. The company has invested millions in this operation. A few animals cannot stand in the way of human progress." "But they are not just animals," Hana protested. "If you destroy their habitat, you could wipe out the entire species." Hyuk turned away from her. "That is unfortunate, but it is not my problem. Mining begins in 3 days. Anyone who interferes will be removed from the colony. This meeting is over." Hana felt helpless as people filed out of the hall. Most of them avoided looking at her. They wanted the jobs and money the mine would bring. They did not want to hear about endangered animals. Minho found her sitting alone in the empty hall. He sat down beside her. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know how much they mean to you." "What can we do?" Hana asked. "There has to be something." Minho shook his head. "The company has all the legal rights. Unless you can prove the Lupari are sentient, there is nothing we can do to stop them." The next morning, Hana went to the forest, despite the danger. She needed to warn the Lupari somehow, even though she knew they would not understand. She found Taeyang's pack near their usual spot by the river. Large machines had already moved into position at the edge of the forest. Workers were setting up equipment. The noise was terrible, a constant grinding and beeping that echoed through the trees. The Lupari were clearly distressed. They paced nervously. The cubs stayed close to their parents. Taeyang looked at Hana as if asking her what was happening. She wished she could explain. She wished she could tell them to run far away. That afternoon, the mining company began seismic testing. They sent powerful vibrations through the ground to map the mineral deposits. The first test sent shockwaves through the entire forest. Trees shook. Animals ran in panic. The sound was like thunder that would not stop. Hana watched through her camera drone as the Lupari fled their den. The vibrations had made it unsafe. The rocks could collapse. The pack ran deeper into the forest, but there was nowhere truly safe to go. The testing would continue for days. Over the next week, the situation grew worse. The constant noise and vibrations drove away all the prey animals. The small rabbit-like creatures disappeared. The six-legged deer moved to other territories. The fish in the river scattered. The Lupari had nothing to hunt. Hana documented everything. She recorded the empty forest. She filmed the thin, hungry Lupari searching desperately for food. She captured footage of the cubs crying because they were starving. But her reports did nothing. Hyuk dismissed every complaint. The animals will adapt, he said, or they will move somewhere else. Either way, it is not our concern, but Hana knew they could not adapt fast enough, and there was nowhere else to go. This forest was their home. Their den was here. Their territory was here. Lupari did not simply move to new places. They were territorial animals with strong attachments to their land. She watched Taeyang grow thinner. His golden fur lost its shine. His huge eyes looked sad and confused. He did not understand why the world had suddenly become so terrible. None of them did. One evening, Hana sat in the lab with Minho. She was watching old footage of Taeyang playing happily by the river. That felt like it had happened years ago, not just weeks. I cannot just watch them die, she said. There has to be a way to help them. Minho was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What if we could make the mine work without destroying their habitat? What if we could find a way for both to exist?" Hyuk would never agree to that, Hana said. He wants maximum profit with minimum effort. Protecting the Lupari would cost money and time. Then we do not ask for his permission, Minho said. We find a solution and implement it ourselves. Hana looked at her friend in surprise. That could get us expelled from the colony. We could lose our jobs. We could be sent back to Earth, Minho nodded. Yes, it could. But is that worse than letting an entire species go extinct? Is that worse than knowing we could have helped but chose not to? For a moment, Hana thought about her career. She had worked hard to become a xenobiologist. She had dreamed of this job since she was a child. Losing it would mean losing everything she had worked for. But then she thought about Taeyang. She remembered the first time she had seen him, practicing his brave growl. She remembered how he had trusted her during the storm. She remembered his mother's grateful gesture. You are right, she said. We have to try, even if it means risking everything. Minho smiled. Then we need help, and I think I know someone who might be willing to assist us. He pulled up a contact on his computer. The name that appeared was Bora. She was an engineer who worked for the mining company. But Minho had heard her complaining about Hyuk's methods. She cared about doing things properly, not just doing them quickly. Do you think she will help us, Hana asked. Only one way to find out, Minho replied. He sent a message asking Bora to meet them privately. As they waited for her response, Hana looked out the window at the darkening forest. Somewhere out there, Taeyang and his family were struggling to survive. She had to find a way to save them. She had to prove that humans could be better than destroyers. They could be protectors. They could be friends. The fight to save the Lupari was just beginning. Bora arrived at the lab late that night. She was a young engineer with sharp eyes and quick hands. She looked nervous as she entered, checking to make sure no one had followed her. What is this about? She asked quietly. Your message said it was urgent. Hana showed her the videos of the Lupari. She explained everything. The intelligence of the creatures. The destruction of their habitat. The starvation. The suffering. Bora watched silently, her expression growing more troubled with each minute. When the videos ended, Bora sat back in her chair. I knew the mining was causing problems, she said. But I did not realize it was this bad. Hyuk told us the area was empty wilderness. He lied, Hana said. The Lupari are here and they are dying. We need to stop the mine. Bora shook her head. We cannot stop it. The company has invested too much money. But she paused, looking thoughtful. Maybe we do not need to stop it. Maybe we can change how it works. Minho leaned forward. What do you mean? The problem is not the mining itself, Bora explained. The problem is the seismic testing and the noise. It drives away the prey animals. But what if we could redirect the vibrations? What if we could make the mine quieter? Is that possible? Hana asked. Bora nodded slowly. It would be difficult. And expensive. But yes, it is possible. We could install dampening systems that absorb the vibrations. We could adjust the equipment to operate at frequencies that animals cannot hear, and we could create barriers that guide the sound waves away from the forest. But Hyuk would never approve that, Minho said. It would cost the company more money. Then we do not tell Hyuk, Bora replied. We make the modifications ourselves. I have access to the equipment. I can adjust the systems without anyone noticing. You would risk your job for this, Hana asked. Bora looked at the screen where Taeyang's image was frozen. The little cub looked directly at the camera with those huge, trusting eyes. I became an engineer to build things, Bora said, not to destroy them. If I can help save a species, that is worth any risk. The three of them began planning immediately. Bora explained the technical details. The mining equipment created vibrations at specific frequencies. By installing dampening systems, they could absorb most of those vibrations before they reached the forest. The remaining vibrations could be redirected underground, away from the Lupari territory. But noise was only part of the problem. The prey animals had already fled. Even if they stopped the vibrations, it would take time for the animals to return. The Lupari were starving now. They needed help immediately. What if we create artificial hunting corridors, Hana suggested. We could use light barriers to guide prey animals back to the forest. We could make safe paths for them to follow. Minho pulled up ecological data on his computer. That could work, he said. The prey animals are naturally photophobic. They avoid bright lights. If we set up light barriers, they would naturally move away from them and toward the darker forest areas. Bora nodded. I can repurpose some of the mining lights. We have more than we need anyway. It would take a few days to set up, but I can do it. There was still another problem. Even with the noise reduced and the prey returning, the Lupari might still avoid the area. They had learned to fear it. They needed to understand that it was safe again. I can teach them, Hana said. They trust me, especially Taeyang. If I can show them that the danger is gone, they will come back. How will you show them? Minho asked. They do not understand human language. No, Hana said, but they understand cause and effect. They learn through experience. I can use warning lights to mark the dangerous areas. Red lights for danger, green lights for safety. The Lupari are smart. They will figure it out. Over the next 3 days, they worked in secret. Bora made modifications to the mining equipment during her night shifts when Hyuk was not around. She installed dampening systems that absorbed the vibrations. She adjusted the machinery to operate at higher frequencies that were inaudible to Lupari ears. The changes were subtle. To human observers, everything looked the same. But the effect was dramatic. The constant rumbling stopped. The ground no longer shook. The terrible noise that had driven away the animals was gone. Meanwhile, Minho and Hana set up the light barriers. They worked carefully, placing them in patterns that would guide prey animals back toward the Lupari territory. They used solar-powered light so the system would run indefinitely without maintenance. Within 2 days, animals began returning to the forest. The rabbit-like creatures came first, moving cautiously through the light corridors. Then came the 6-legged deer. The fish returned to the river. Life was coming back, but the Lupari did not return. They were still hiding deep in the forest, too afraid to come back to their old territory. Hana knew she had to reach them. She had to show them it was safe. She went into the forest alone, carrying a pack of equipment. She found the Lupari's temporary shelter in a rocky cave far from the river. They looked terrible. All of them were thin and weak. The cubs barely had energy to move. Taeyang saw her first. He made a weak chirping sound. Despite his hunger, his tail wagged slightly. He still trusted her. That gave Hana hope. She set up a small device near the cave entrance. It was a simple system with 2 lights. A red light that flashed when mining equipment was active nearby. A green light that glowed when the area was safe. Hana activated the device. The green light came on, steady and bright. She pointed at it, then pointed toward the river. She repeated this several times, hoping the Lupari would understand the connection. Taeyang's mother watched her carefully. The adult Lupari was clearly intelligent enough to understand that Hana was trying to communicate something. But she was also cautious. She would not risk her family without being certain. Hana had expected this. She had brought food. Not much, just some preserved meat from the colony supplies. She placed it on the ground near the cave entrance, then stepped back. The Lupari needed to eat. They were desperate. The cubs rushed forward, but their mother stopped them with a sharp bark. She approached the food carefully, sniffing it. Then she took a small piece and ate it. When nothing bad happened, she allowed the cubs to eat. While they ate, Hana pointed again at the green light. Then she walked a few steps toward the river. Taeyang followed her. His mother barked, calling him back, but the cub looked between Hana and his mother, unsure what to do. Hana walked back to the cave. She repeated the gesture. Green light. Point toward river. Walk a few steps, come back. She did this several times until Taeyang seemed to understand. Green light meant safe direction. The next day, Hana returned with more food. This time, she placed it halfway between the cave and the river. The green light on her device glowed steadily. Taeyang's family was hungry enough to follow. They moved cautiously, the adults constantly alert for danger. When they reached the food without any problems, they relaxed slightly. Hana moved further toward the river, placing more food. The Lupari followed. Step by step, she was leading them home. By the third day, the Lupari reached their old territory by the river. They found it transformed. The noise was gone. Prey animals were everywhere. The water was clean and calm. Everything was as it had been before the mine arrived. Taeyang splashed into the river, playing like he used to. The other cubs joined him. Their parents watched, and for the first time in weeks, they looked peaceful. Hana watched them from the shore. She felt exhausted but satisfied. They had done it. Against all odds, they had found a way for humans and Lupari to coexist. The mine was still operating, extracting valuable minerals, but it was doing so without destroying the forest or its inhabitants. This was what human ingenuity was meant for. Not domination but harmony, not destruction but creation. Humans were not conquerors. They were problem solvers, and when they chose to help instead of harm, they could achieve incredible things. 6 months had passed since Hana, Minho, and Bora had saved the Lupari. The forest by the Crystal River was alive again. The mining operation continued to extract valuable minerals, but it did so quietly and carefully. The two worlds existed side by side in an unlikely peace. Hana sat by the river on a warm afternoon, reviewing data on her pad. Her research on the Lupari had grown into something extraordinary. She had documented behaviors that proved they possessed more than just animal intelligence. They showed problem-solving abilities. They communicated with complex vocalizations. They mourned their dead and celebrated births. They were not just smart animals. They were a species on the edge of true sentience. Her reports had caught the attention of the Galactic Council, the governing body that oversaw human expansion into space. They had sent inspectors to Kepler 442b to verify her findings. After 3 months of observation, they had reached a conclusion. The Lupari were officially classified as a proto-intelligent species. That meant they were protected by law. No one could harm them or destroy their habitat. The news had not made Hayuk happy. He had been furious when he discovered the modifications Bora had made to his equipment. He had threatened to fire everyone involved. But then the Galactic Council's ruling came through. If he had continued the original mining plan, he would have been guilty of attempted genocide of a protected species. The legal consequences would have been severe. Instead, Hayuk was forced to implement proper environmental protocols. The dampening systems that Bora had installed secretly were now official company policy. The light barriers that guided prey animals remained in place. The mining company even had to pay fines for the damage they had already caused. Hyuk had aged visibly from the stress of it all, but Hana felt no sympathy for him. He had been willing to destroy an entire species for profit. Now he was being held accountable. That was justice. A familiar sound made her look up. Taeyang was approaching through the purple grass. He was no longer a small cub. He had grown into a young adult, nearly as large as his parents had been. His golden fur gleamed in the sunlight. His movements were confident and strong. But what surprised Hana most was that Taeyang was not alone. 3 small cubs followed behind him, tumbling over each other playfully. Taeyang had started his own family. He was teaching his cubs the same lessons his parents had taught him. The cubs were curious about Hana. They approached cautiously, their huge eyes fixed on her. One of them, braver than the others, came close enough to sniff her boots. Then it jumped back and made a small growling sound. The growl was high-pitched and uncertain, just like Taeyang's had been when Hana first met him. Hana could not help laughing. The cub was practicing trying to sound brave. It was the same behavior that had started everything, the same innocent attempt at intimidation that had made Hana realize how special these creatures were. Taeyang made a soft chirping sound at his cubs. They immediately stopped their playing and gathered around him. He was teaching them about humans, Hana realized. He was showing them that she was safe, that she was a friend. One of the cubs approached Hana again. This time it did not growl. Instead, it touched its nose gently to her hand, just as Taeyang's mother had done after the storm. The gesture brought tears to Hana's eyes. It meant trust. It meant acceptance. It meant that the Lupari remembered what humans had done for them. Minho arrived a few minutes later carrying equipment for their daily observations. He smiled when he saw Taeyang and the cubs. "That never gets old," he said, "watching them live their lives in peace." "No," Hana agreed. "It does not." They set up their monitoring equipment while the Lupari played nearby. The work had become routine, but it was still important. Every day brought new data about Lupari society and behavior. Hana's research was now used as a model throughout human space. Other colonies studied her methods for protecting indigenous species. She had become famous in scientific circles. Universities wanted her to give lectures. Research institutions offered her prestigious positions. But Hana had turned them all down. Her place was here with the Lupari. There was still so much to learn about them. Bora joined them later in the afternoon. She had been promoted within the mining company, much to Hyuk's displeasure. Her innovations in environmental engineering had attracted attention from corporate headquarters. They wanted her methods implemented at all their mining sites. She was traveling across the galaxy now, teaching other engineers how to work in harmony with alien ecosystems. But she always came back to Kepler 442b when she could. This planet felt like home now. These creatures felt like family. The three humans sat together watching Taeyang teach his cubs how to hunt. He demonstrated stalking techniques, moving slowly through the grass. The cubs tried to copy him, though their attempts were clumsy and obvious. Taeyang was patient with them, showing them again and again until they improved. "This is what we should be doing," Bora said quietly. "Everywhere humans go, we should be learning and protecting, not conquering and destroying." Minho nodded. "The galaxy is big enough for everyone. We do not need to take everything for ourselves." Hana thought about those words. They represented a fundamental shift in how humans viewed space exploration. For centuries, humans had taken what they wanted without considering the consequences. They had seen other species as obstacles to be removed or resources to be exploited. But the Lupari had taught them something different. They had shown that coexistence was possible. That mutual benefit was better than domination, that the galaxy was richer when diversity was preserved. Other colonies were starting to follow their example. New protocols were being written. Laws were being changed. The Galactic Council had created an entire department dedicated to protecting developing species. Hana served as an advisor, helping to write guidelines for responsible exploration. Her famous motto had spread throughout human space. "We do not conquer new worlds, we learn to belong to them." It was printed on posters in colonial offices. It was taught in schools. It had become a principle that guided human expansion. Of course, not everyone agreed with this approach. There were still people like Hyuk who valued profit over preservation. There were still companies that tried to bypass environmental regulations. The fight to protect alien species was ongoing and would probably never end. But now there were people fighting back. Scientists like Hana who documented and protected. Engineers like Bora who found innovative solutions. Politicians and activists who pushed for stronger laws. Humanity was learning to be better stewards of the galaxy. As the sun began to set, painting the pink sky with shades of purple and gold, Taeyang and his family prepared to return to their den. The cubs were tired from playing. They yawned widely, showing their small, sharp teeth. Before leaving, Taeyang approached Hana one last time. He looked at her with those enormous, intelligent eyes. Then he made a sound she had never heard from him before. It was complex, almost like speech. It seemed to carry meaning beyond simple animal communication. Hana did not understand the exact meaning, but she felt its intent. It was gratitude. It was friendship. It was a promise to remember. "Thank you too," Hana whispered back. "Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for showing us a better way." Taeyang touched his nose to her hand one more time. Then he led his family into the forest, disappearing among the silver trees. Hana, Minho, and Bora packed up their equipment as darkness fell. The colony lights glowed in the distance. The mine continued its quiet operation. The forest hummed with life. Everything was balanced. Everything was as it should be. They walked back together, talking about their plans for tomorrow. There were more observations to make, more data to collect, more species to study and protect. The work would never be finished, but that was fine. Some work was worth doing forever. Above them, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Each star represented a world. Each world might harbor life. Some of that life might be simple. Some might be complex. Some might even be intelligent. Humanity would meet all of them eventually. That was inevitable. Humans were explorers by nature. They would always push further into the unknown. But now, thanks to the lessons learned on Kepler 442b, they would approach each new world differently. Not as conquerors, but as students. Not as destroyers, but as protectors. Not as masters, but as neighbors. The story of Hana and the Lupari had proven something important about humanity. When faced with a choice between profit and preservation, between expansion and extinction, between convenience and compassion, humans could choose the harder but better path. They could choose to be heroes, not through violence or domination, but through ingenuity and kindness. That was the true strength of humanity. That was what made them worthy of exploring the stars. And somewhere in the forest, a small cub was practicing his growl, trying to sound brave. He did not know that his species had been saved by humans. He did not understand the complex politics and laws that now protected him. He only knew that the world was safe, that food was plentiful, and that strange hairless creatures sometimes watched him play. That was enough. That was everything. That was the legacy of coexistence.